Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Young and Visionary. You're with me, Esnat Suleiman, and today we will be talking about how to develop the discipline to save, because that is probably one of the most important steps as you start saving and investing. And what I just wanted to point out is the reason a lot of people don't save is because of this concept called immediate gratification. I remember in university, in one of my psychology classes, we did learn about immediate gratification. And basically what it means is that as individuals, we would prefer to do something that will give us satisfaction now instead of delaying that satisfaction to a later date. And actually, a perfect example is exercising. A lot of people want to be healthy. A lot of people want to have good bodies. A lot of people have goals to do with, let's say, for example, losing weight. If it were possible to exercise one day and get results, everyone would be in the gym. But the reason a lot of people don't do it is because you have to do it consistently for you to get results. And what that means is you're not getting the immediate gratification. Instead, they'd rather spend their time doing something else that gives them immediate gratification. It's the same with savings, right? Because if you're saving or whether you're investing, it means that you're using money that you could have spent now, put it away for it to use for something else in the future. So that is the one thing that needs to be conquered. So today I brought our friend here. Her name is Pinky, and I'm sure everyone knows what this is. This is a piggy bank. And for me, I thought for most of us in Malawi, we probably did not grow up being taught how to save or invest. These are things that we've had to develop on our own after we grew up. In other cultures, almost every child gets one of these. What that means is right from the time that they are young, after they get their allowance, they are putting some of it away. Immediately as a child, they know that you must save money. I heard about this little guy when I was little, but the first time I saw one in real life was only last year. And immediately I bought it because I was so excited. I was so excited to start teaching my kids now how to save, because if they learn now how to save and how to invest, it will be so smooth and easy for them when they grow up. The same way with investing. I was privileged some years back to go to Houston on a certain program. And on that program, someone was speaking about one of the courses that they had in their middle school. And they talked about how they would ask the kids to bring in some money every month. So what they would do is they would take that money, go deposit it at a post office, and the children would get stamps in return. So they would have a hardcover where they would put in all their stamps. At the end of the year, they would take that hardcover and then exchange it back at the post office and get money for it. So the kids were also being taught how to save and how to invest. And to be honest, I was so amazed and so impressed, and how I wish even here in Malawi, that could be something that could be taught to our young people, to our children now, so that in the future they can become savers and investors. So I do encourage you, if you're a parent, get yourself one of these for your children. If not, there are other ways of doing it. You could find a carpenter to make up a wooden box with a little gap like that one where they can put in the money and only access it at the end of the month. So, how do we develop the discipline to save? I want to share just a few tips, because even for me, developing the habit to save was one of the most difficult things. And I kept giving myself excuses. I had responsibilities. I was supporting some of my siblings, and I wasn't getting a lot of money. I had to take care of myself. I needed transport every day to get to work, and I just couldn't save. I didn't have enough money to save. I bet I can resonate with, a lot of you can resonate with what I just said, because that is the most common excuse. I do not have enough money to save. But today I want to tell you that saving is more of a discipline than it is about how much money you have. The first time I saved was in the year 2013. I started working in the year 2008. So it took me a whole 5 years before I got to the point of saving. Some of you are lucky, you've just started working, you get to listen to what I'm talking about, and immediately you start saving, and that is just going to be the most amazing decision you could ever make. So for me, I remember in my early years of working, I had a friend of mine. Every time I was broke, I knew I could go to her and borrow money, and she would always have money saved somewhere, and she would willingly lend me that money. And she used to be someone who perhaps we earned almost a similar amount, I'm quite sure, but she was so disciplined in her savings, like it really motivated me to start saving. But I had to struggle with my own willpower, immediate gratification, also all these excuses I was telling myself. But in the year 2013, I decided that I needed to start saving. So I will talk about one of the ways that I started saving then as we go along, because it is one of the ways that I want to recommend to you in terms of how you can develop the discipline to save. But the first thing I want to say is you need to have something to motivate you to save. So what that means is, first of all, you need to have a goal. So set a goal for yourself. What is it that you would want to purchase in the future? Maybe it's not necessarily a purchase. Maybe you want to save for something, or you simply just want to grow your money and make sure that you have a fund somewhere where you can access an emergency. That is a goal enough to motivate you. So you need to be intentional. You need to have something to motivate you. So that's the first thing. Write down something that will motivate you enough to want to put money aside. The second thing is to ensure that saving is not the last thing you do. So if you're working like me, you get your paycheck, don't start spending it and then decide what you save at the end, because there might just not be anything left, which is usually the case, I should think, for a lot of people. So savings needs to be one of the first things that you do. So that is the second thing. The third thing is to use tools that are available to you. So there are certain tools that are available that banks can provide to you. And that is where I want to talk about the importance of having two bank accounts, a savings account and a current account. Most people have one account, probably a savings account, because someone told you, the bank gives you some interest on a savings account, so you should own a savings account. So we get our salary there, we're spending from that same account. Not the best decision if you're just starting out with saving. I would recommend you have two accounts. You should have a savings account, you should have a current account. The current account is your spending account. The savings account is the account where you now start to save your money. So make sure you receive your salary in a current account. You take some of the money out and transfer it to a savings account. Now, the other problem as well is sometimes we can borrow money from the savings account. So there are additional things that you can do to avoid doing that. The first thing is to make it difficult to access. So that means maybe you don't necessarily have an ATM card for that account, because it's easy to go to the ATM and withdraw. It's easy to go and swipe in a shop. But if you don't have an ATM card for that account, it means you have to go into a banking hall, which is probably a bit tedious for a lot of people, probably something that will discourage you from actually going and accessing those funds. Another thing that you can do is actually have your savings account in a totally different bank as well, where you don't have access using mobile banking and the ATM card that I spoke about. So Consider making your savings account less accessible. I'll move on to the third thing. Make the savings automatic so that you're not having to think about it. You're not having to debate with yourself, having a conversation with yourself as to whether you can afford to save in that month. Make it automatic. There are things like standing orders. So a standing order is more or less an instruction to the bank that says, on such a date, automatically transfer money from this account to that account. So it could be a standing order that transfers money from your current account to your savings account, or it could actually be transferring money where you save or invest it. Yeah, so that's something that you could use, and it's something that I use a lot. For some of the investments that me and my husband make for our children, what we've done is simply placed a standing order. So immediately we get paid on certain dates, money moves from our accounts to those places where we're saving and investing our money for our children, and that happens automatically. We have no say over it. So make it automatic. Very, very important. Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to say regarding savings is to make sure that you join certain savings groups. Savings groups, they're also good because they encourage you to save. Now, when I talk of savings group, just a bit of clarity. I'm not necessarily only talking of village banks, because village banks come with a lot of risk. Okay, so if you're going to go into a village bank, make sure that you are familiar with all the people in the village bank, okay? Because people have lost money, and that is a fact. But savings groups, sometimes people come together. You can come together as friends, put money together every month and invest it together. That means you're encouraging each other to put money together and save. Some companies have circles. Yeah, you can join a circle every month, you're saving to that circle, and then at the end of the year, the funds are distributed. That's something that also causes you to save consistently, and it forces you actually to save because you are supposed to make a monthly payment. For me, for example, I joined together with some colleagues of mine, old schoolmates actually, and we formed a group. We actually registered it as a company, and it's an investment company. So we put money together, and we give that money to a fund manager, and the fund manager is managing the money on our behalf, investing in shares, investing in fixed deposits, investing in even government paper. So that's something that you can do. We contribute monthly, not even a lot of money. We contribute 50,000 a month, but it makes a difference. So that's also something that you can do, savings group. Another thing is also just to have friends that encourage you to save. You know, even the Bible says, walk with the wise and you will become wise. So I talked of my friend who really motivated me to start saving, because for me, I always admired how she always had it together. She would always have money saved somewhere. It didn't mean that she was never broke. Yes, she'd be broke, but her savings money was separate from what her spending money was. And even now I have friends who save, and we talk about shares, about which shares we should be buying. That's something that you need to have. Have friends that encourage you to save. And if you are already knowledgeable about saving and investing, make sure you're also sharing this knowledge with others so that they too can also start to save. I just want to share a little bit, a story about my younger sister, actually. She's one of the people that I'm so proud about when it comes to saving, because I feel like it took me the longest time to save, but because I had been encouraging her about saving and whatnot, she sort of figured it out very early in her life. And for me, for example, my first vehicle, I bought it using a car loan. Gosh, I loved that car. It was a Nissan March, tiny little thing, but I loved it so much. I bought it using a loan. My sister bought her first vehicle with cash because she learned how to save very, very early. And for me, I feel like that's one of the biggest lessons. And I mean, it's not like she bought like this large vehicle. She bought a Vitz. But she managed to buy it in cash. And I feel like that's something that should inspire us to say that if we do start saving early, it's something that we can all achieve. So I hope that the tips that I've given in terms of how you can start saving, you can develop that discipline to save, I hope that they will really, really, really be helpful for you. Now, I did touch about how I would explain to you how I started saving regularly. I used a savings policy. So insurance companies also offer savings policies. They also have investment policies. So it depends on what exactly you want to do with the cash. So you can decide what it is that you want. So I opened a savings policy with Nico Life at that time, and it was only for 5,000 and there was a standing order there. So immediately from my account, every month, 5,000 would move out. So at that time, remember, I was struggling. I felt like I've got so much responsibility. I felt like I really don't even know if I can afford to save. So I started with the 5,000, and that went on for like the first year. And the second year, I grew a bit of confidence. So I went and took out a second policy where now I was being deducted 15,000. So you can see that once you start saving, automatically you start to see that it's possible for you to save, and it starts to encourage you to save more. So I do want to encourage you to say that you should really start saving. And there was this quote that I found online that I really loved, and it said, "Save your money today so that tomorrow your money can save you." So I hope you do subscribe to this channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please tell your friends about this channel as well, and ensure that you practice, because getting all this knowledge won't mean anything unless you actually put it to action. So in the next couple of episodes, I'll start to talk about some of the ways you can save, some of the ways you can invest, and we'll even talk about budgeting, because remember, I said make sure saving is one of the first things that you do, and budgeting is an important process in the whole equation. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, bye-bye.